morning. Welcome to our podcast for the day. It's Aging Like a Boss, Fitness Advice for Men Over 45. I'm the host for today, Mongolo Leone. I'm joined here with Derek. We'll be talking about a variety of aspects of health, ranging from nutrition to exercise to mental health. Derek, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Derek Banga, and I work as a corporate trainer, leadership coach, an executive coach, and I'm also a part-time actor, and of course, a fitness enthusiast.
Yeah, fantastic. Glad to have you here today.
Fantastic. Glad to be here. Right. Yeah.
Very good. I mean, so we're here in Nairobi, Kenya. We can see that there's an explosion of people interested in fitness, health, mental health, much more than before. So, in line with that trend, we want to talk about different trends and fads that people are following, but especially as you get older, what's most important. So, to start off, I guess that would be my first question. As you age, what have you found is the most important part of your own personal fitness journey?
Well, first of all, let me put it out there. As we age, everything starts to break down. Gravity takes over. Everything is heading down south. So I think actually, as you get older, it's really about making sure that you can maintain not just your physical health, but your mental health. And this sort of becomes a priority. So whether it is prioritizing your nutrition, your diet, obviously your fitness, sleep, really important, and being consistent with it. I mean, we're all busy professionals, and so being able to do it maybe when you're on the road or you have a family and you're busy. So I think to me that is maybe the challenge, and hopefully part of this conversation will be how we're able to actually do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Consistency would be the main issue there. I know we're talking about fitness advice for men over 45. I'll be 40 soon, but I can already see that maintaining a consistent game plan is very hard when you're a young professional.
Yes.
So what advice would you give to people that are having problems with the consistency element of it?
Well, we're just talking about this earlier, the explosion of gyms, and maybe the gym culture, certainly in Nairobi, if not most of Kenya. And so I think access to a gym, a training facility, a running track is much easier. I mean, these days, even the new estates that come about, new developments will always provide some sort of area for physical activity or physical fitness. And that might have been a challenge maybe going back 10, 15 years ago. So that makes the consistency or the ability to be able to maintain a fitness regimen a little bit easier, is access to this. And by the way, you can also do this at home. Obviously, the digital age that we live in means that there's so many people giving tons of advice online. So you can easily go on YouTube or listen to a podcast where people can give you information on being able to do these activities, whether it's at home or do them on the road. So that sort of helps with the consistency. But that is the key word right there. It's actually about being able to do this on a regular basis. You're not going to change overnight, but if you're able to put in the work day after day, week after week, then the results do show. And that's sort of been my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's familiar with the gym culture in January. Everybody has their New Year's resolution to, this is going to be my year. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to eat better. They go and they join the gym and they go 4 or 5 times in January, and then February rolls around and we see that huge drop off, and then you don't get the results that you need. So how have you personally kept up with the consistency? I mean, is it just a matter of your own mental fortitude, or would you advise people to hire a personal trainer or a training buddy, something like this? Because it can be very overwhelming to set tasks for yourself. You're not seeing the results, and then you start to taper off and quit, and everything comes along with it too. You stop going to the gym, you stop exercising, you stop getting up early, you don't sleep enough, you stop eating right. So especially for people that want to be healthier and get into this lifestyle, like, how do they do that?
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of some of the things that you mentioned, and you're right. It's interesting. People will come to the gym January, and then February there's a little bit of a taper off.
Well,
But number one, it is
gyms love that, by the way,
yeah,
too. You're paying them
that's
for
when
nothing. Yeah.
you pay your gym membership for the whole year, and they don't care
Yeah.
either way whether you come back or not. But I think part of it is also being your expectations, right? And you mentioned it. You're not going to see an overnight change in results. You have to stick with it, and that certainly involves some sort of resilience, if you will.
Yeah, sure.
So there's certainly a mental game to it, but it's also, for me, it is being in that sort of environment. So a lot of the people that I associate with will talk about health, we'll talk about fitness. Having a training partner at the gym or meeting certain people at the gym on a regular basis is also an incentive.
The
And for me,
social element of
and it's also looking at my long-term goals. You see, where do I want to be in 3 years or 4 years or 10 years?
Absolutely.
And knowing that if I don't stick to it, then I might not be able to achieve those goals. So there's also that long-term horizon that you need to look at. I think that also helps with consistency. Certainly helped in terms of my being consistent in the gym.
Yeah.
And for me, it's become almost like a success work habit, to be honest with you. I mean, I dialed in my nutrition, my fitness, quite a while ago. And now it's part and parcel of my lifestyle. It's almost, like breathing. I get up in the morning and I head to the gym and I do my workout, or I do my workout at home, depending on where I am, or I do it on the road. And once you're able to do it over some time, it sort of becomes part and parcel of who you are. It becomes a success work habit. So, there are different ways of approaching it, but absolutely, consistency is key. Yeah.
Well, I guess what you're saying there is make it part of your lifestyle. If it's part of your lifestyle, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to force yourself to do anything, really.
And I think also what I found is for some people that I talk to, they struggle with it maybe because of their family. So if you, maybe talk to your wife, say you're married, or or your children, so that they know that in the morning you're going to get up and maybe go work out, or you work out in the evenings, and so they, also working that around so that your family is involved in your fitness goals. That also helps with the consistency, because people taper off because they're busy, and they're busy with work and family.
It's setting a routine as well too. Now I'm busy doing a lot of things. I wake up in the morning, I'm in different meetings, I'm all around town. I just carry my gym clothes with me. So if I have an extra 30 minutes, an hour, half an hour, I mean anything, even 15 minutes, pop into the gym, get a little workout in, and they say something's better than nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is something that I've struggled with in my professional career as well. I was mentioning to you, I used to live in Papua New Guinea, on the other side of the world. And I had a very strenuous job in that I was working 18-hour days for months, because that was the job, right? So I remember there were some times where I just had to force myself. It was part of my lifestyle, but the mental aspect of it was, if I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and literally throw myself out of bed, I go to the gym, I get my workout, and then I don't have to think about it.
To think about it, exactly.
And I've done that before, like quite literally. You want to go back to sleep, but now I'm up, so might as well get things moving.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but the most hardcore version of kicking your own self out of bed to new fun things to do in the fitness space, like paddle, for example. I think we've seen maybe 100 new paddle courts come up around Nairobi. Even last night, I was there at a paddle court having a meeting, but all the way until 6, 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, people are playing and active of all ages. So I mean that could be another thing that maybe you've noticed that gets people into the fitness space, and then once you see results, it's easier to carry on.
Yeah, and talking of routine, I mean that morning routine. So whether it's waking up and doing some sort of mindfulness activity, meditation, gratitude, journaling, there's so many things that people sort of recommend in terms of that, and incorporating exercise as part of that. And you and I both know that the benefits that you get from even 15, 20 minutes of exercise last throughout the day. It really sets you up for success for the rest of the day. And once you sort of are able to experience that, then it becomes easier for you to get up in the morning and know, all right, might be a little bit difficult to get out of bed, but I know this 20 minutes of exercise is actually going to have long-term benefits, at least for that day, if not for the rest of your life, hopefully.
There's a lot of different aspects of staying healthy, and a lot of people do focus on the physical aspects a lot first, whether that's cardio, running, sports, strength training. In your own personal journey, like what's actually worked for you? What's the most important part? Again, as you said, as you age, what works better down the road?
Yeah,
You know, when I was in high school, it was easy to get up and run 10 miles in the morning. Maybe not so much anymore. So maybe I do less cardio. But in terms of strength training, in terms of different exercises you might do, what actually works as you get older?
Yeah, well, first of all, physicality equals mentality, that's for sure. I think as you get older, strength training is definitely something for men and for women.
Yeah.
That should be incorporated in your fitness routine for your muscles, to keep your bones sort of strong as well. Some sort of strength training. Definitely some form of cardio. Like you mentioned running 10 miles when you were younger. I mean, I don't even think I can run 10 miles
Anymore.
but anymore. Certainly when I was younger, I think I could. But some form of cardio. Now, I tend to, so I'm not a huge fan of, say, running on a treadmill on the gym or even running on the streets in Nairobi. I think sometimes a little bit of a,
Dangerous. Yeah.
let's just say, a couple of obstacles
Yeah, sure.
to overcome. And I'm not particularly thrilled about that. But, whether it's, playing tennis or swimming, actually swimming is one of my favorite activities. Doing some form of cardio just to get your heart rate up. It's interesting. I see people in the gym who are on the treadmill and they're running, but they're still able to talk.
Yeah.
I think it's actually
You shouldn't have. You shouldn't be able to. Yeah.
you shouldn't be able
Yeah.
to talk. You should really get your heart rate up. We were mentioning that the number of paddle courts that they are. So some form of cardio that's going to get your heart rate up, that's going to get you sweating, incorporated with strength training, and then of course you have things like diet, nutrition,
Yeah.
and sleep.
Yeah. Strength training is an interesting one because I'm a former athlete, a former middle distance runner. Actually, I still hold the record for the 800-meter run in California for my age group at the time.
Is that right? Okay.
Which is the hardest. It's not a sprint. It's not a long distance run. It's a hard one to do. But I was maybe 60 kilos back in high school. When I got to college, I started strength training and saw a huge difference. I went from 60 to 80 practically overnight with the help of a good diet and lifting, right? But that's maybe it needs to be a bit demystified because a lot of people think it's just for men. It's just for the gym guys that are just pumping iron all the time. And a lot of girls might say, I don't want to be buff. I don't want to look like that. So, I mean, what advice can you give for people along that line?
Well, first of all, let us knock this myth out of the park,
Yeah.
or so to speak, or get rid of it. That as a woman, unless you're taking some kind of maybe illegal type of supplement, you are not going to gain the muscle mass that a man is going to. No, there's no way. Yeah. So strength training, you're absolutely right. For men and for women, particularly as you get older. Now, personally, I'm not lifting as heavy as I used to lift when I was younger, obviously. But for me, it's more about maintaining my weight, maintaining the muscle mass, and not necessarily being as big as I was younger. I mean, I don't think I have to go around showing off those muscles, so to speak.
Sure.
But there's absolutely an upside to the strength training.
Well, the intrinsic benefits.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not about it being huge and buff and showing off at the beach, but the intrinsic benefits of just being better off, like more healthier, I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Healthier. I personally, I think you look maybe even you look better in clothes for sure. But yeah, the intrinsic benefits of strength training, I think, are incalculable. As I said, particularly with not just the muscles but the bones and things like that. So preventing falls,
Yep.
and being able to just carry out day-to-day activities without having to struggle as much.
Yeah.
Those are part of the benefits, particularly as we get older.
Do you think people focus on it enough?
No, actually, I don't. I'm thinking of the gym, particularly that I go to. The men and women who are above the age of 40 are a distinct minority. It's definitely a young man or a young woman's
Yeah,
game, a young
absolutely.
person's game. So it's the young people who are throwing around the big weights in the gym.
Yeah.
And I absolutely like to see older people. In fact, I think that's the reason we're doing this
talking
podcast.
today, yeah,
is
exactly.
actually to encourage people, certainly in their 40s and going to their 50s and 60s, about the benefits of strength training, stretching, for example, and obviously the cardio like we mentioned earlier. Yes.
Talking about myths as well too. A lot of people might not understand the nutrition element of health, of your health journey. Like I said, they focus on going to the gym, and maybe that tapers off. But what I've always said is, it might be easy to go to the gym for 1 hour a day, but what you eat for the other 23 hours of the day is actually more important.
Yeah.
And being back in Kenya, I've seen that the nutritional education is actually quite low. Side story: my cousin is a cyclist, and when I got back to Kenya, he's eating chapati every day, and he's eating ugali. And I was at his house one evening, and he'd eaten a lot of ugali, and then fell into a food coma, like almost went to sleep. So I educated him on the benefits of eating more protein. What happens to your body when you eat too many carbohydrates, when you eat too many carbohydrates too fast. A lot of that was more or less unknown. So where do you place the importance of nutrition in your journey?
Hey, knowledge is power. And culturally, I think a lot of that impacts the way that we eat.
Yeah, sure,
and
absolutely.
our diet. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult, or you have a family and trying to sort of prioritize what you should be eating
Yeah.
versus what the rest of the family is eating. But like you said, this information, and hopefully it's information that people can get access to or people are open to listen to. It's about, sort of prioritizing things like, the amount of protein that you eat, obviously limiting the amount of carbohydrates that you eat and veg. And people have, I think, a surface level knowledge of some of this. Like they know it, they've heard it somewhere that, I need to eat less sugar, all right?
Yeah.
Or that third chapati maybe is not so good for me. But I think people need to sort of go beyond just that surface knowledge and actually investigate why. Why should you reduce or even eliminate sugar from your diet? What's the reason for that? And again, thankfully, you can go online and you can read about the benefits of that and sort of begin slowly introducing. And we're not talking about an overnight change, for example.
Absolutely. It's a long change.
I've eliminated sugar from my diet, all right? It didn't happen overnight. It started with reducing the spoons of sugar that I put into my coffee or put into my tea. And then eventually I was able to, quit that completely, stop drinking sodas and things like that. So people can actually begin to do this sort of piece by piece and not necessarily have to have a huge overhaul.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. Diet is the other half of this fitness journey. And no matter how much work you do, whether it's in the gym or doing cardio, if you are not taking care of your nutrition, then a lot of that is sort of going to waste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the old saying, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
Personally, I've played around with diets throughout my professional career. And you might be able to comment on this, but every person is different. People respond to carbs differently based off of genetics, based off of different, a lot of different factors.
Yeah. And
So you always have to eat for your body. So how did you figure out what works for you?
and again, this is something that we mentioned, the fad diet. So again, there's a lot of information out there.
Yeah, true.
And there are a lot of fad diets or diets that you can come across, keto, carnivore, whatever they are. You have to figure out what works for you. You're absolutely right. One size doesn't fit all. And you've got to be able to maybe take the key ingredients of something and maybe tweak it to make it work for you. So for example, in my case, I found eating once a day works for me. All right? That's not necessarily for everyone, but for my body type, how my body responds, all right? Not having breakfast, not having lunch, and then having my main meal in the evening, and it's a sort of form of intermittent fasting works for me. But I had to sort of play around with it. So again, take some of this information that you read about, play around with it, see what works for you, see how your body responds, and then see if you can incorporate it as part of your routine.
I think we could have a whole entire podcast on nutrition.
Just on nutrition
alone. We're very similar in that regard. I do one meal a day as well too. Usually in the afternoon, I go about 16 hours fasting almost every single day. And people think that that's crazy. Like I said, culturally, maybe your mom or dad or whoever in your family is like, oh, you have to eat as much as you can, just because of the environment we're in. I mean, a lot of studies have shown that the number one thing that increases longevity is eating less, not eating more, which might be a bit counterintuitive, but I've personally seen that I feel better when I eat less. I have more mental clarity. I have more energy. But people think that food is energy, so I need sugar to move on with the day.
Right.
So it's getting past some of these preconceived notions is absolutely difficult.
Yeah, and it's also sort of that mindless eating. You're sitting down watching something on TV, and you're just snacking away. So I think people also need to become a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? Just a little bit more conscious of exactly what they're putting into put in their mouth and investigate it. I mean, even going to a restaurant, ask questions. What's in this, or what kind of oil did you use? And once you start being a little bit curious about what's going into your body, then it becomes a little bit easier, whether it is to monitor or be easier to sort of gauge and say, all right, well, actually, I'm going to stay off this. This is what I'm going to eat, or I'm just going to, avoid this.
Yeah. As you said, knowledge is power, and 50 years ago, a doctor might recommend that a cigarette is good for you. We know better now. 20 years ago, margarine and some of these hydrogenated oils were very normal to have in the house and have in your diet. Now we know better. But again, it's an uphill battle to get that knowledge out there and have people make changes. So, I mean, how important is, say, regulation in this equation, or just how can the average everyday Kenyan, average everyday person, start to implement those changes?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, some of it I think is we sort of have to begin to exercise our own personal discipline. You're responsible for yourself, your body, how you present yourself to the world, and so if you sort of begin to be a little bit more disciplined in terms of, all right, I'm either reduce the amount of food that's on my plate, or reduce the number of meals I'm going to eat, or not take sugar in my tea or coffee or whatever it is, or not drink orange juice or soda and things like that. That sort of discipline is something that I think all of us sort of need to activate, if I can use that word. And sure, might be a bit of a struggle. It certainly is. Particularly if you're eliminating something that you enjoy.
Like. Yeah, exactly.
But again, I always have that sort of long-term horizon. I look and I say, where do I want to be in 10 years? And these days, it's sad, but it's true. You actually don't have to look very far to kind of see the effects of these quote-unquote lifestyle diseases, which everybody knows. That's not a term that is new to anyone, of what these lifestyle diseases are doing in terms of their effects on health, friends, family, colleagues,
literally
business associates. Everybody knows somebody who's been impacted. And so if you sort of say to yourself, all right, maybe what can I do in terms of tweaking, changing, working on my diet to sort of prevent me perhaps being in a similar sort of situation.
So we might have some older gentlemen watching and saying like, okay, great, cool. I know when I go to the gym, I'll do more strength training. If we're talking about what's important as you get older, like for example, what do your macros look like for the amount of protein that you intake on a daily basis? As you said, as you mentioned, you cut out carbs and a lot of, especially simple carbs. So what does it look like? What does your diet look like?
Yeah, so I definitely focus on the proteins. I think I'm heavy on that. I've also, say, for example, and speaking of protein, reduced the amount of meat that I eat.
Yeah.
So I've explored a lot of vegetarian options. So I'm doing a lot of beans, a lot of lentils. And again, we talked about that cultural thing. Eating beans and lentils might not necessarily be the thing that a red-blooded Kenyan man is necessarily associated with. But I found those work for me, and those I think are options. Particularly as this podcast is targeted towards the older or the more mature gentleman or lady that people can begin to explore. And the fact is, there are so many sort of different ways of preparing that type of food. So it doesn't have to be the way it was maybe traditionally prepared
Not a
in the
pot of
household.
beans usually, but maybe something new like a quesadilla or something.
You can flavor them any which way. You can mix them with different things. So again, I think a lot of people are sort of had that blinkered vision. It's like, okay, this is how githeri is prepared. This is how beans have been prepared. I never liked them. Well, maybe try something new. Try a different, sort of way of preparing some of these things, and you might be surprised that you actually begin to enjoy it.
You mentioned meat. I mean, Kenya is a very big meat-consuming country. There's been plenty of studies on reducing the amount of meat that you eat as you get older, especially.
Red meat.
You're saying that's worked for you.
Yes.
So if you want to get your protein in, what do you supplement it with? With fish or lean meats, or what does that look like?
There you go. So in terms of meat now, substituting red meat, absolutely. Fish, for sure. A lot of fish options out there. And chicken. So fish, chicken, turkey. Again, if you can get it at a reasonable price and afford it. So those I've introduced those in my diet in the place of red meat. And I still enjoy red meat. I still enjoy my nyama choma, but I've, like I said, absolutely reduced it. And I've seen you've cut it out completely.
Not completely, but definitely reduced.
I've reduced it.
Yeah.
And you can sort of see the benefits. And I think particularly with diet, those changes can actually be felt, if not seen, pretty quickly. Just in terms of how you feel. You talked about going into a food coma, for example. I mean, and if you eat that heavy ugali at lunchtime at 2:00, we all know that feeling of trying to work in the afternoon at 3:00.
And have that haze.
and there's a little bit of brain fog. And like you said, being a little bit more sharp, mentally, having just being a little bit on top of your game. Those, you can actually feel those things a lot quicker, and that might make it easier for people to do. But you see, a lot of people are either scared to do it or they don't want to do it. So just go ahead and give it a shot.
On nutrition, what about fats and oils? Again, it might be something that needs to be demystified a bit. I'm sure that there's plenty of people that would still say that fat makes you fat. What do you have to say to them?
Do you know what the greatest invention of the last 10 years has been? Well, certainly, I believe it in terms of how it has changed my life, my cooking, and my diet.
What is it?
And that is the air fryer.
Oh, really?
So now, instead of cooking something with oil, let's just say chips. And I don't even eat a lot of French fries or chips or anything like that. But
just for example,
typically, I would take something that needed to be fried, put it on the pan and fried. But now you can throw it into the air fryer, no oil or very little at that, and still get the same results. So to answer your question specifically, I think absolutely reducing the number of oil. Now, again, if you go online, there's a back and forth in terms of seed oils. Are they good for you? Are they not good for you? But you can actually see, for example, the Kenya Bureau of Standards, certain oils, mafutas, have been taken off the shelves. Because I think they've also come to the realization that this is doing a lot of people greater harm than good.
Especially for society. More people are sick, more people are at the hospital. That's almost a no-brainer.
There's a direct link to a correlation. So again, if you're still, drowning your food in oil. And I get it. You know, some of these oils, like maybe olive oil, might be a little bit more expensive. But absolutely, I think as we mature and as we get older, particularly in our 40s and 50s, reducing the amount of oil, if not eliminating it. And again, just being a little more curious about the type of oil that is being used.
Yeah.
You know, somebody else might be doing the cooking in your house. So what is this oil? Just looking at reading the food label at the back, you know, finding out a little bit more and going online and just doing a little bit of research, I think has a benefit to all of us.
I think we could do a whole podcast on oils itself, because there's a big difference between healthy fats and unhealthy fats. And I think the majority of people don't know the difference.
No, they don't.
When I was doing my keto diet, fat was the majority of my diet. If you looked at the food pyramid, I turned it upside down. I had more fats in my diet than proteins,
but they were good
than
fats,
carbs.
right?
Good fats, yeah, exactly. So olive oil,
avocado,
omega-3s, exactly.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, a lot of people do love avocado here, but they probably wouldn't. It's a fruit, and they probably wouldn't know that it has those type of good fats in it.
Sure.
So again, we could probably do a whole nother podcast on that alone. But
and
I personally switched over to beef tallow to fry things, and I've already seen a difference. You know, like cut out seed oils.
Yeah.
Again, it's might be a little bit controversial, but at the same time, there's a lot of education to be there, right?
And speaking of cutting things out, you've cut out. You said you've cut out seed oils. So I've cut out all margarine. So now, you know, if I'm going to, have a piece of toast, which again, I've cut out, eliminated bread for the most part. But if I'm going to use something, it'd be butter as opposed to margarine. So just things like that. And again, the difference in terms of how I felt was enormous. And just in terms of even how the food tasted, it made a world of difference.
Is better, right? Exactly.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about supplements briefly.
Yes.
It's also a bit of controversial. Almost every single day, the amount of protein you need to get in your diet, protein supplement is a very common supplement that half of Kenyans think is some type of drug or steroid or something like that. And I always help out with the education of telling them that, it's a natural supplement. Almost anything that you buy at a health food store is healthy. You're not going to a health food store to buy, drugs and steroids and stuff like this. So what type of supplements do you use, and how have you overcome this particular stereotype?
Well, because I live an active lifestyle, I definitely, as I said earlier, my uptake of protein might be a little bit more than, say, the average person who is not as active. I think for me, in terms of supplements, number one is some sort of whey protein. And the protein that I use is protein.co.k. That is where I buy my protein shake from.
Very, very good.
So that just, again, helps me so that I don't have to go out and eat a ton of nyama or meat. That is my number one supplement for sure, in terms of protein. Now, other supplements that I've incorporated in my diet, I think here's one that a lot of people might not even be aware of, but I think the benefits for men and for women, and certainly as you begin to be more active, and that is creatine.
Oh, okay.
So creatine has been part of my diet now for years. I take creatine on a daily basis. I mean, every time I work out, I take a little bit of creatine. So I'm not necessarily doing the creatine loading in terms of that. It's just, and again, I've seen those benefits in terms of even my mental acuity.
Really? Okay.
Eliminating brain fog, and just, again, certainly there are benefits in terms of how my body has responded. But I think creatine has, and the research is beginning to come out, and by the way, I think this is one of the most researched supplements ever. And it has benefits other than just using it after the gym to help you in terms of your muscle mass and things like that. So creatine is definitely protein shake, I would advise all people who in their 40s and 50s or more mature, creatine. And again, creatine is, relatively speaking, not as expensive as, say, maybe other supplements. Now, again, just because of the research that I've done, the benefits, and again, everything, I sort of give it a shot. I might read about it and I'll try it and I'll see the benefits, but I've added one of the good oils, which is fish oil. So I'm doing my omega-3s. I take my fish oil every day. That's definitely helped. Heart health, amongst other things. And then I'm now taking magnesium.
Okay.
I'm taking zinc. I think these have benefited me in terms of my sleep. And again, everything, I just feel, sharper. I feel like I'm a better version of myself. And I've recently started taking a collagen and ashwagandha. Now, I don't know if you are going to ask me about each of these, but the ashwagandha, which has surprising benefits. I started taking it over the last 1 year, and I've seen some pretty interesting results.
Really?
As part of taking that.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I think we take almost the exact same
Exact same
supplements. The 3 6s and 9s I've had this morning. I also use protein KE.
Yes.
I use it as a meal replacement, actually. So people have different macros on how much protein they consume. If you go to the gym, an easy, I don't know how much you have, but I usually do about two grams per every kg of weight, right? So I need about 160 grams of protein a day, which is really hard to get from eating just eggs or eating just beans or whatever it might be.
Right.
A surprising effect there as well too is if you supplement protein in the morning, you find yourself less hungry throughout the day.
Yeah, there you go.
Your body has everything that it needs, and it's regenerating rather than tearing itself down. And then some of these other ones as well too, like as you said, as you get older, ashwagandha and magnesium and these other ones, as you said, might be a bit of a fad, but if you have results with them, then there you go, right?
Yeah.
What results have you seen with ashwagandha?
So with ashwagandha, I think I'm just a little bit more energetic. I think that's definitely one of the reasons why I started taking it. So it keeps my energy up, and so it's working for me as far as that is concerned. Yes.
Very good.
I think also there's a whole debate about testosterone levels.
Yeah.
And there are people who are taking all types of,
Testosterone replacement.
testosterone
and stuff
replacement,
like that,
HRT, and things like that. And ashwagandha being sort of natural, I think is one of the ways. And that is actually a thing. Our testosterone levels absolutely do go down as we
over time,
as we get older. And so for ashwagandha, I think is a natural sort of replacement for that.
Well, so it's very interesting. We talked about as you get older, you get busy, you have a family, you don't have time to work out, you're not focusing on nutrition. But the majority of people that they get older, that you want to feel better. You want to stay in shape. You want to be mentally clear, and have good sleep. And so you have the ideal you over here, but getting there is a lot of these different aspects. I don't know anybody who would say that they don't want to be mentally clear. And you've mentioned it a lot of times in that, cardio might help with that, sleep might help with that. But how important do you rate your mental health in this whole equation?
Yeah, in fact, I just wanted to say before I answer that question, and a lot of these supplements, again, for me, it's almost like insurance, right? You buy insurance for your vehicle, you buy insurance for your house, just in case. So for me, this is insurance for my body, just in case.
That's
and
a
like
good way
you
to put
said,
it.
and sure, I might take whey protein as a meal replacement, so I don't have to actually eat breakfast in the morning. But for me, all of this is just to give myself another layer of protection, so to speak,
absolutely.
as I get older. I don't want to wake up one day and all of a sudden not be able to move or be as active as I want. I want to maintain this lifestyle for as long as the good Lord allows me to be on this earth. But sorry, your question was on
mental health.
On mental health.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. So as I said, physicality is equal to mentality, and for me, this active lifestyle, I think even the mental benefits, I would put them on par, if not better than the physical benefits. Obviously, the physical benefits are great, but mentally, particularly what we went through over the last 4 or 5 years with a virus that changed the way we work, and the amount of stress and burnout, and all of the mental problems that people experienced. I think for me, my saving grace was the fact that I was still able to maintain a physical and an active lifestyle, and that helped me mentally. And that, I think, is the next big hammer that is going to drop, certainly as far as health is concerned, particularly in this country, Kenya,
Yeah.
there is going to be a crisis which we're already seeing in terms of mental health. And I'm not even talking about, the mental health issues that we're seeing with young people, whether it's because of social media. That's a completely different debate. I'm talking about people in our age group, 40 and up, who are going to be really reaping the not so good benefits of not taking care of their mental health.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, whether it's everything from therapy, which again, I'm a huge advocate of, to me linking my physical and fitness and lifestyle and my sleep and my diet to my mental health.
Yeah.
I thank God for that. My resilience, my self-management, my self-awareness, everything. And I need all of these in the type of work that I do. And I think most of us do. So
Yeah. I mean, and again, there's a lot of science behind that in terms of as you get older, the degenerative effects of a bad lifestyle are mainly in your brain, in terms of what diseases there might be, and whatnot. So, again, a whole nother podcast that we can sit and talk about for a long time there.
Sure.
Very good. I mean, to wrap it up, we can maybe you can recap on what's inspired you to stay healthy as you get older. 40 plus. Some people might say, hey, I don't want to focus on this. So what is your inspiration, Ben?
I think there comes a point in every man's life, or every woman's life, or every person's life, particularly when you hit 40s or you hit the fifth floor, like I might have, where you begin to start thinking of things like legacy, destiny. What do I leave? Now, talk to the average Kenyan, and finances are probably number one on that list, right?
Yeah, sure.
Whether it's generational wealth or making sure that my family is financially secure, or the people that, because this is when you begin to start thinking of what will happen to the people that I love, the people that are close to me when I'm no longer here.
Yeah, sure.
As that reality sets in. So for me, my journey in terms of fitness is about thinking about that legacy, but not necessarily, or should I say, it's not necessarily the legacy when I'm not here, but how do I want to enjoy the people that I am closest to for the second half of my life?
Yeah, for as long as you can. And
for as long
time.
as I can.
Yeah.
I want to still be able to climb a mountain if I want to do that. I want to be able to take the trips that I want to. I want to be as mobile and as physically fit as possible to enjoy a lifestyle that's going to allow me to enjoy the rest of my days.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. I'm always looking, as I said, looking sort of ahead. Yeah, the benefits are here, they're today, I can feel them. We've talked about my mental health on a regular basis, but I'm also thinking about how do I want to enjoy the next 10 years? Where do I want to be when I'm 60?
Yeah.
And you look at examples of people who are in their 60s and their 70s, and you sort of see those who have maintained that lifestyle and how they're able to do this versus those who are in and out of hospitals.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to be in and out of the hospital when I'm 60 or 70, or God forbid, even when I'm in my 50s.
Well, as you said, quality of life.
Yeah.
If you're immobile when you're 60 or 70 versus out on the beach having fun or climbing mountains, you need to maintain a certain lifestyle to get there. So it's a very important aspect that some people might not think about.
Yeah, exactly. Or God forbid, you break a hip or something along those lines. Like, how quickly are you going to recover? Or are you even going to be in a position to sort of fall down and be able to prevent yourself from actually hitting the ground in such a way that's going to make you immobile?
Well, and the financial aspects of that as well too. If you're in the hospital with a broken hip, it's going to cost some money rather than being able to work and support your family and whatnot. So yeah, there's a very important aspect there too. I mean, a side note there, my mom's a yoga teacher. She's 75 years old. Yeah. She can probably do more push-ups than I can.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely flexible. She focuses on elderly yoga. She's out hiking mountains and doing more active things now than she used to. In her 20s and 30s. So I mean, in that aspect, I mean, again, I don't know anybody who would say, I don't want that, or I do want to sit home, or I do want to be unhealthy.
Right.
But you need to have a game plan to get there.
You can look at somebody who spends the rest of their life, when they're sort of more mature, just sitting in a chair and watching TV.
Yeah.
Versus, like you said, your mom who's up and about and climbing mountains and being able to, be out and about. And to me, the choice is clear. It's actually pretty stark.
Yeah.
That is absolutely the lifestyle I think that all of us should be able to enjoy, rather than sitting at home immobile, sort of having people wait on us
Yeah.
because we can't move. We can't even get up and go to the kitchen, or we need help to go to the bathroom, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can begin making those choices today.
Yeah. Well, look at where you want to be and work backwards.
Yeah.
We went over a lot of different areas that you might want to research up on or focus on, and how those intertwine in your own life is everybody's own journey. But if you leave one of them out, maybe another one might suffer. So,
Exactly.
as I said, there's a lot of education that that goes towards, and then a lot of like you said, resilience, and a lot of you need a little bit extra motivation. And how do I keep up the consistency? I mean, it's not easy, but as you said, the benefits are quite clear.
Yeah. And you talked about inspiration. So inspiration doesn't have to come from somebody who's famous or somebody who's well known. Inspiration can come from anywhere. Come from somebody in your life. It can come from somebody listening to the two of us talk and say, actually, I want that for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So looking for those sources of inspiration and sort of seeing, again, thankfully, the algorithm on a lot of my social media platforms will feed me these sorts of, whether it's YouTube videos or Instagram profiles and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And I'm always getting inspiration from somebody who's a little bit more mature, has active lifestyle, and then I read about them and I see what they do, the part of the world that they're in. And that to me is, again, where I get my inspiration from. I think that when you had mentioned inspiration,
Absolutely. Very good. I'm hoping people that have watched this podcast were inspired in one way or another to take on their own fitness journey.
Yeah, well, hopefully this is the first of many conversations that we're going to have based on this sort of lifestyle. But yeah, this was great to initially talk about something.
As I said, each individual aspect that we talk about could be a podcast of its own. So hopefully we'll have you back again soon, and we'll tackle some more of these aspects in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, this is great.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching today and joining us. Hopefully you were inspired and learned a little bit. Thank you so much to Como Tagoni, where we are here today filming. Amazing restaurant that you should check out. Thanks so much again to protein.ke for putting this on and hosting these events. And we hope to see you next time.